but the community is getting large enough that it's bringing a lot of people in, which is fantastic. But with a lot of new people come a lot of new ideas. Some are great. Some are a little bit myopic, and we probably ought to have a conversation about that. And at the same time we talk about community in this talk, I want to talk to you about where we've been and where we're going. And especially since this is the only BSides ICS to exist, as Mike said, and then we'll go into the sort of the regional views. I think it's a good way to sort of have that conversation today and see, again, what really matters. Because I started my career, there was a whole discussion of ICS threats don't exist. And for those of you who are like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, like, even like some of the big competitors that we have today at Dragos, like, started their discussion. I remember being at S4 years ago, and one of the founders came up to me and said, but Rob, why you guys focus on threat detection? We all know there's no such thing as ICS-specific threats. And I was like, you should find another business to be in. But that made sense. It wasn't that they're idiots. Nobody's stupid about this. There's a lot of valid arguments for this single statement. When I joined the military and got access to the signals intelligence networks and all those cool things, they had the same view. Rob, there's no ICS threats. Okay, let's go look. And what it ended up being is their collection was completely off. They were looking in telecoms networks and IT networks, and they were going, look, there's no such thing as ICS threats. I'm like, that makes sense. We should look in the ICS networks. And that seemed to be a revolutionary concept at the time. And then we realized that less than 5% of the global infrastructure today is monitoring their OT networks. It gives you a little bit of an understanding about why we're not seeing as many things as we'd like. So for a long portion of my career, I was trying to kill the hype. You'd see me out in the media, you'd see me where Bloomberg, it always seems to be like Jordan Robertson, but like there's a bunch of journalists that'll be like, oh my God, the phishing emails to the grid, we're all gonna die, the grid's going down. I'm like, first of all, there's not one grid. Second of all, phishing emails don't take down grids, that's not how physics works. And so we had the long conversations about, hey y'all, calm it down. Because I'm a big believer in ground truth reality. If there's a threat, let's look at it and fix it. If there's not, we have all sorts of other shit to deal with in the infrastructure world. Weather matters, events matter, crazy people living under pylons, shooting at wires matter, like it happens, okay? So businesses aren't in business to care about your concerns that you saw at DEF CON or the cool man in the middle attack you did at Black Hat. Nobody gives a shit. Did it happen? Did it happen to my peers? Yes or no? Then we'll address it. And that's all they have time for, because cyber risk is just a component of those businesses. So I spent a large portion of my career focused on saying, let's focus on the right things. A lot of this is hype. And then we started seeing change. And then so I started coming out going, well, actually, there are some ground truth reality threats now. Let's take a look at that intelligence-driven discussion. And again, a lot has changed. So these days, when I see things like Volt Typhoon, and I see the government come out and say, oh my God, this is real, I get it. I get why a lot of asset owners and operators go, why? You've been talking to me about China and Russia lacing the grid with malware, like some sort of ecstasy or something, but like lacing it with malware. We've heard that story for years. You kept telling us, and every asset owner and operator out there said, okay, we believe you, where's it at? Point to it. And they couldn't. And so everyone said, I'm not focusing on that. And they were right to do it, because a lot of the government intel, and I love them to death, but a lot of the government intel was we know bad people want to do things. We can break into their networks to see them talking about wanting to do things, but we can't see if they're actually doing it, so we'll warn about it. That's not how warning should work. It should be that conversation. Hey, we don't know. Let's have a conversation about we don't know, and that's not good. It's not a good state to be in to know if our critical infrastructure is compromised currently or not. But you don't go out to the media and say, we think it might actually be compromised. Like, show the receipts or move on. And so for years, asset owner operators got tired of that message, rightfully so. But with Volt Typhoon, they have the receipts. We now have a state actor that is explicitly targeted a lot of US infrastructure, but a lot of other countries around the world as well. A lot of the conversations have been on the US because some of these companies are actually looking. There's a lot of companies in Australia and Singapore and other parts of the world that are not looking. And if they do, they might find some Volt Typhoon in their networks. So what's different about Volt Typhoon? What's different about sort of that threat discussion before I start getting into the actual point of this talk and community and what's changing? If you look at targeting infrastructure and breaking into critical infrastructure, there's a lot of different ways to approach that. And historically speaking, it was, let's look at the biggest sites, let's try to get into their IT networks, and then one day move into their operations networks, and when we're there, we'll try to figure out something to do. That was a lot of your state actor teams. They didn't know. They were, at best, ICS curious. They were just trying to figure it out, okay? And if you look at a lot of the national critical infrastructure lists maintained by most of the governments around the world, and for some weird reason I've been allowed to look at most of them around the world, they are all following the exact same pattern. What's the biggest generation site? What's the biggest manufacturing site? What's the biggest pipeline? What's the biggest sites? These are the critical ones. And I'll tell you that's wrong. The actual critical ones are some of the smallest sites. If you want to have a crank path bring up the electric system after it goes down, you're starting smaller sites and moving to big sites. You don't spin up the big plant first. Physics wins. If you want to talk about manufacturing, there's some small manufacturers that make really key components to a lot of the things we use that if you take down that one aspect of the supply chain, you really do screw it up. On compressor sites, there's interesting ones. Substations, there's interesting ones. There's a single distribution substation in this country that if it goes down, you do not put troops in the South China Sea. One distribution substation. And it's not on any of the classified lists. So what scared the US government appropriately about Volt Typhoon that I don't think they're articulating as well as they could is when they saw the Chinese operations, it wasn't, look, they've compromised infrastructure. They found passwords. Nobody cares, okay? What it was is they started going after those sites not on the lists that actually made sense to target, a really good understanding of mapping out the infrastructure of which ones were critical and which ones weren't. And when they get on the operational side of the house, they were stealing engineering workstation drawings, they were stealing the HMI screenshots, they were stealing the data historian inputs, they were taking the type of stuff you'd actually use to weaponize and do actual kinetic impact. That's what scared them. And yet there's a large portion of this community that still wants to have conversations of, well, ICS threats don't happen that often, or ICS threats aren't that active. And it's like, man, y'all are missing the boat. We're talking about conflict, and I don't like to be that person, not like all warmongering and shit. I'm a general true believer that every 35-year-old mom should go home to every 5-year-old child out there. Okay, I would protect Iran's power system if they let me. I think civilian infrastructure should be off limits, full stop. Forget all the militarization aspects of it. That being said, don't be ignorant to the fact that there are people that want you dead. And I want my kids to grow up in a world with infrastructure. So let's have a serious conversation. So when I talk about community to this room and to the S4 audience, and don't worry, Mike, it's okay that Dale rejected you. I rejected Dale this year. I like Dale, but I'm here for this talk, and then I'm leaving. I'm not going to S4, and I'm not sticking around for today. Mike asked me to come and speak this. I was happy to kick this event off, and I'm going back. I've got things to do, and I love S4, and I love Dale, love those folks. Dale and I are good friends. We disagree with 99% of what each other says, but we are good friends, and I think that's important, by the way, that you can do that. But it's okay, Mike. I'm here for you, so we're good. But when you look at the community aspect, here's what I want to give as a piece of advice, and then I'll move into the point again about threats and what to do about it. Number one, this is a community. It won't always be. If you look at the IT security community, there was such a thing as an IT security community once upon a time. There is no such thing as the IT security community anymore. If you're in InfoSec, it's like, what aspect? There are application security people who have never heard of anybody in the network security discussions. There are cloud security folks that have nothing to do with AI researchers, security folks. There is a bifurcation of a million different things because at one point in IT security, you could have been a generalist, but you can't be anymore. You have to be a specialist. Right now in industrial security, just understanding that ICS and OT are not IT makes you the expert, okay? Like, we are very generalist still. We have our specializations, but we are still very generalist. So we're at a unique point in time where we still have a community, and I would implore everybody to have a couple community fundamentals. Number one, everybody's welcome, right? That's a simple topic, but it's so silly how fast that degrades in the community. But everybody's welcome. I talk about diversity a lot at Dragos, and why do I do that? Not because I'm like all up on it. I'll be honest, I'm super selfish. I'm a very selfish person. My only mission in life relates to OT security. Whether it's at SANS, military, Dragos, whatever else, it's all the same thing. It's why it's easy enough to have like 7 jobs, because I'm just doing the same job for like 7 different people. I just want to do OT security. Why do I like diversity so much then? Because I remember being at the NSA. And I remember going up against North Koreans and Chinese and Russians and all sorts of different teams, and they all had one thing in common. They were all North Koreans on the North Korean team. They were all Russians on the Russian team. And why did the NSA team run circles around them? Because I had everybody on my team. And we were able to think differently and think better and be better. So diversity is probably an ethically right reason, but I'll tell you, it makes you better. And I like being better. And against state actors, I want to be the best. So number one, everyone's welcome. Number 2 aspect of the community, we have to have core principles. One of my core principles is if you are bringing people in this community, we can be friends, even if we disagree. Like I said, and I'm going to play this up a little bit, Dale and I disagree about most things. It pisses me off that before he writes something on a blog, he knows me, he's got my number, he could call me and go, Rob, what's going on here? And instead, he just goes, I wonder what's Rob doing over there. I'm like, dude, you just like blasted out like 10,000 people you could have called. It always pisses me off, legitimately pisses me off. I can't say anything online. I can't respond to a single article, because if I do, 300 people get involved and think it's their holy war too, and I'm like, God, we can't fight in public. But here's what I like about Dale. Dale brings people in this community. And so as a result, I am good buddies with Dale, and Dale and I get along. There are some people that I looked up to in this field, and yeah, I'm talking about Joe and Ralph, that don't bring people in the community. They tell them to fuck off, and here's why you're not welcome, and here's why you're not an expert, and this is why you shouldn't be here. And so we can not all have the little whispered things, but Zach, you know, as you're laughing, there's very few people that are allowed to take the stage and say that without getting like the ICS equivalent versions of canceled. So I think I'm worthy enough and have made it in my career enough to say that shit's got to stop. Stop idolizing people that are shitting on people. There's whole back channels in Slack that'll spin up on when I do things just to bitch about what I'm doing, saying, well, I bet there's an ulterior motive. It got out that I joined the military. One of my competitors is already trying to raise complaints going, I bet it's because Dragos does federal contracts. It's like, cool, man. Number 1, we do federal contracts already. Joining the military makes it harder for me to actually be involved in those conversations. I got to sit it out now. And number 2, if you got a problem, I know the recruiter. You can come on in and put the uniform on too. Whatever access you think I have, I'll give it right to you, okay? So if you are trying to make the world a better place, stop bitching about other people. So we all have to align on community first principles. That number 2 one is bring people in the community, we can get along. Keep people out of the community, and I promise you, when you look to your right and left, when conflict actually happens, you're gonna be alone, and that sucks, okay? Number 3 core principle that I want you to understand is you do not have to have any specific background to be here. This idea that you gotta be a controls engineer, you gotta be a military person, you gotta be a cybersecurity expert, you gotta be this, that's so stupid. I started out my career at the Air Force Academy as an African Studies major. I think I've done okay in ICS security, okay? I spent time going to Cameroon and building control systems and having fun, but I was an African Studies major, not comp sci. Nothing special. I learned, I built labs, I put in the work. You gotta put in the work. You can't be like, I'm not technical and I'm always gonna remain that way. No, that's not what I'm saying. So you gotta put in the work. But you can get here through any background, through any path. It's okay. And core principle number 4, and then I'll move off the preaching and get to the talk. Core principle number 4 is you're not allowed to leave. There's some of you that are like, I'm gonna do ICS security for a little bit, I'm gonna go work for the bank. The fuck you are, okay? You can't leave. Mark and I were just talking about this. Mark, how many retirements have you had now? 5 retirements. Control engineer, working at a chemical company, Red Tiger Security, Mandiant, Dragos. Now you're back doing who God knows what. I look around this room, I see a couple of you that have been here for a while. Larry, what are you on now? 7th job or some shit? Zach, how old are you now? You're like, I know you're looking good, but let's be honest, how old are you, Zach?
I'm 68.
You're full of shit. You're rounding down. 68. What job are you on now, Zach?
I don't know,
15 or 16th into this, okay? And Zach started in the Navy, apparently the only military service I haven't been in. So like, at this point, let me tell you that everybody gets stuck here. Jonathan Pole is one of the world's leading ICS security fucking experts, and he's doing the comms at this event. You know, he's like, I'll record some shit. He's the keynote at every other conference. You can't leave. You know why? Because it matters what we do. You can talk all day long about all the IT security. If it's IT security at infrastructure companies, welcome to the pool. But I gotta tell you, I don't give a shit about anybody protecting my credit cards and my PII. OPM already leaked all that shit anyways. I'm so glad you're a good person. I want you to be successful in life. But when you talk about protecting people, and you talked about protecting sites from risks, whether it be state actors, criminals, or just malice, and you talk about people getting to live their lives Pharmaceuticals get into the kids. I had a BDR one time that got to sell to a pharmaceutical company that made his insulin. He was diabetic and got to sell to the company that was making his insulin to make sure that they had security. That's fucking magical. That's cool. It's cool to be in OT security, and you get stuck. And if you ever think now's the time to leave, there better be a damn good reason. Financial for your family or something, that's fine if you have to. But if you don't have to, whatever's bringing you to that moment, go back and watch some of the talks that got you here in the first place, because we need you. I can outsource your IT department to Amazon, but physics ain't moving to the cloud, okay? And so we need you, and you can't leave. So if you remember those 4 things, and there's plenty of other life lessons, where those 4 things are going to move you in a good direction in your career. The 5th one, and it's just kind of a bonus one, but Mr. Rogers nailed it in the start, okay? It was always find the helpers, be the helpers. You got to go out and help folks. Take your skills, take your insights, take your magic powers, and go find some smaller sites like Mike was talking about. Just help somebody, mentor somebody, anything. Just bring people in, okay? So as I start winding this down, let's get to the actual point. The threats, where we were and where we're going. Some of you have heard me talk about this before, but there's a lot of new people in the audience. I want to speak to you as well. If you look at the world of industrial automation, it has changed. It's changed fast. It's changed faster than people realize, and it's about to change a hell of a lot faster over the next 5 years. Once upon a time, we had very heterogeneous infrastructure. It was like farm, like handcrafted, farm to table, like control systems, okay? Every integrator was different, every OEM was different, every control system was different. There was like nothing in common between Siemens and Rockwell. The gas turbine control system in Dammam, Saudi Arabia had nothing in common with the water filtration plant in Illinois. It was just different, heterogeneous infrastructure. And as a result, you could spy on a lot of people, but you couldn't destroy a lot of shit at scale. Couldn't kill a lot of people at scale. Because the more impact you wanted to have, the more specific your attack needed to be to that site. When I was on the government side, the conversation would have gone, I say when I was, I guess I'm back, but when I was the first time, the conversation would have been like this. Some general comes in, combatant commander says, I want a capability to take down infrastructure. Doesn't care about cyber, wants the capability taken down. Says, hey, round the table, what do you got? And though most of my portion of my career was on defense, there was a portion of my career on offense. When you're a military officer, they don't ask you what you want to do, right? So they was like, you're doing offense now. I was like, oh, great. And that's why I got out. But when I was on the offensive side, the military commander would walk in and ask that question. The conversation was real simple. They go around the room. Who can take down, and let's just hypothetically say it was an integrated air defense system and a power site to it. We go, okay, Captain Lee, what do you got? I was like, okay, from a cyber perspective, if you want this, I need a team of 30 people, maybe 13 minimum, 13 to 30 people. I need about $30 million budget, and I need about 12 months. They're like, what? Yeah, I need about 12 months. Got to research it, got to build it, got to target it, got to get access to it, yeah, about 12 months. Okay, what happens if we change targets in these 12 months? I'm like, I got to start over. That target, if you want me to actually do kinetic damage to it through cyber means, it's got to be that target. Okay, how many times can we reuse this capability? Like at that one site, yeah, you can reuse it. Outside of that, never again. You're like, okay. Pilot, what can you do? Whew. I can be sober in 6 hours and bomb it. That's every conversation, military-wise, that has ever taken place prior to 2022. If you saw destructive attacks in the world of industrial control systems, you saw intelligence agencies. You did not see militaries. You saw intelligence agencies around the world that had a very specific target they wanted for very specific reasons, and they did intelly things to say it's worth it, and we'll go do this operation. But all the militaries turned to the pilots. That's a heterogeneous world. The problem is a heterogeneous world is bad for asset owners. It's bad for society. You get somebody in the oil and gas industry that is working at Cherry Point Oil Refinery, and it's a hard time for them to move to a different refinery, let alone out of the oil industry. They learn those systems. It's not, I'm an industrial control system expert. It's, oh, I know that Honeywell Experion system and how to use it in this environment. And so in a heterogeneous world, it made it hard for workforce development, made it hard to move people around. It made it extremely difficult to have consistency on things like safety. It made it extremely difficult to have better profits as we were creating these very custom systems and getting vendor lock-in. I like a lot of my OEMs out there, but nobody's ever had a good relationship with Honeywell, okay? Like, let's be honest. You get locked in. Nobody likes that. Now Honeywell's great, I think. All right, so I mean, shit, even Stalin had friends. All right, so when you move into the discussion, we would see that all of these sites were difficult. They were difficult to manage and operate. Not just difficult to hack, they were difficult to manage and operate. So as a result, and for all the right reasons, the industry went towards homogeneous infrastructure. I'm gonna put code assist in everything. I'm gonna have common operating platforms. I'm gonna have common operating systems. Hell, I'm gonna have open DCS standards. And we're gonna have interoperability. We're gonna put an OSI Soft Pi historian, which is amazing, love that company, in the cloud. Damn it. We're gonna do these things because it's gonna generate better profits, better safety, better workforce development, better everything. So for the security person that comes along and goes, don't put it in the cloud, and then the business looks at it all, they're going, that's a bad recommendation. And they're right. Put that shit in the cloud all day long. Makes sense. What's the problem? The biggest problem is the loss of expertise. In a growing world of complexity, a loss of expertise. At that heterogeneous facility, there was a woman who worked there. She worked there for 10 years as an operator. Her daddy worked there for 10 years as an operator. Her granddaddy worked there for 30. And she knew anything and everything about that site. And when it went down, she was the person you call. She knew how the system works. She could get back up and running. And most importantly, she could do root cause analysis. Root cause analysis is a fundamental topic of understanding what the hell went wrong in the first place to bring it back up. For all of you in the ICS security community, you can use whatever frameworks and documentation and conversations and models you want, but the CIA triad shit's gotta go. Operations really cares about availability. That's bullshit, okay? There's some places that care about availability, but we really want to get it right. I do not want to bring up, even in electric transmission, which is like availability is top tier community, I'm not bringing up the substation if I don't know what went wrong. I might damage the equipment or break something and make it down longer. So I'm not just chasing availability. What everybody wants is root cause analysis. Why the hell did it go wrong? That way I can recover it safely. I can recover it in the right way. And back in the day, Tammy at the plant, she could get it for us. But as we move to a homogeneous environment, now it's a system of systems with integrators and OEMs and EMs and everybody in between. And if you want something fixed, you call a support contract, you call 30 people. I got to work the OT side of Colonial Pipeline incident response. For those of you who's like, I don't think it was an OT incident, why the hell was I there? Anyway, so on the OT incident side of it, as we're looking at it, had to call a lot of people off retirement. There's a lot of people that got called off retirement just to bring the pipeline back up because it had never been taken down. Just figure out root cause analysis and how to restart it all. You don't just like flip a switch on a pipeline, okay? When you look at that kind of complexity and homogeneous world, it means that we're losing the ability to do root cause analysis. There are boards of directors and major investors and CEOs and everyone else that truly believes that when the cybers happen, they will know what to do and how to respond. And maybe they do. Most of them don't, but maybe they do. But they have no idea if it's the cybers that happened to activate that response plan. We've been involved in a lot of cases where things happened, the data's gone. If you didn't prepare ahead of time in an OT incident response, you're screwed. In IT, you can deploy some stuff because it's systems and data. Deploy some stuff after the fact. You should prepare ahead of the time in an IT incident response, but if you don't, you can get by. All right, there's a lot of logging, call CrowdStrike or Mandy or whatever. They'll drop an agent, pull it all together, create you a nice timeline. It's all resident data. In the world of operation technology, systems of systems, network data, transient data, commands flying over the network. If you didn't collect it ahead of time, it's transient, it's gone. Can't deploy an agent to get it. So there's a lot of companies out there that have no idea why something happened. We had it, I can't talk about the site. We had a state actor, Xenotime, that developed the Trisis malware, deployed it against safety systems, and tried to kill people in Saudi Arabia in 2017, show up at a site in the US, getting into their safety networks. That's not good news, okay? Couldn't figure out what was going on because not even the basics of security deployed in that environment, no like switching to like span traffic, nothing. We're like, okay, that's weird. And then we saw that same threat group targeting another company. We saw it from an outside perspective, them hitting on the doors. We don't know if they got in or not, okay? So don't make an analytical leap here. We do not know if they got in or not. But what I do know is they were trying to get in for 3 weeks, and 5 weeks later, so 2 weeks after they've been trying to get in, there was an explosion at the plant, and the operator said that it was undiagnosed safety control system issues, and it was tripping for some unknown reasons. And when FBI and everybody else tried to get involved, no data, nothing. And the company came out publicly and said, across our detection tools, we looked and there was no cyber threats detected. But I know, as a matter of fact, that company had nothing deployed in their OT side of the house. So it's technically true. There was no detections. But also, they weren't trying to detect anything. So I'm not standing here saying that was a cyber attack. I'm standing here saying there's a lot of those things happening these days with people having no idea from a root cause analysis perspective if it was or not. And whether we talk local community, society, or national security, that bothers the hell out of me. Okay? All this, well, Rob, we can fix it all with blockchain or quantum or whatever else. Fine, but can we all at least agree that we need to know what the hell's happening first? Then we can believe in your voodoo technologies. So that's good. That's heterogeneous to homogeneous, that's the complexity of the world, but what's that conversation now with adversaries? That conversation is real simple. If I was back in uniform on the offensive side, I've defined my role to be very, very, very defensive. Back in on the offensive side, that military conversation would be very different these days. That military commander will walk in, I'd probably walk proactively into their office actually, and say, hey boss, I know you don't need it right now, but for 30 million bucks, 13 to 30 people, in 12 months, I could develop your capability to do kinetic damage against your targets. And he or she would say, or they would say, what targets? And I go, any of them. And they go, oh, well, how often could I ever use that? I'd be like, forever. It's not based off vulnerabilities and exploits, it's based on fundamental understanding of operations. And if they can operate their equipment, I can misoperate it. And I can misoperate in such a way to create kinetic damage, whatever you want. Works on everything from servo motors on an unmanned aerial vehicle to water pumps to gas turbine control systems. And every military in the world would say, yes, please, credit card swipe. $30 million to have that kind of capability, credit card swipe, credit card swipe, credit card swipe. And now your military is to be in the game using those capabilities. And that would take us from a world where we have low frequency, high consequence attacks to much higher frequency, high consequence attacks. And I just don't think this community is ready for that. For those of you who are like, you're fear-mongering, Rob, that happened in 2022. Capability known as Pipe Dream, we've talked about it before. I was on S4 stage in like some really ridiculous outfits, because I think, tangent real quick, I think we really make our adversaries out to be something special. Panda statues at RSA and comic books and shit, fuck them. They're adversaries. Stop worshiping them, okay? Like, stop with this, like, you're so cool. They're pathetic. They're targeting civilians. What aspect in human history have we been like, that's great? I know there's like some people in this country that like Nazis all of a fucking sudden, but like I don't. Like, don't target civilians. It's a pretty good stance in history to take. And if you're on the side going, but we're doing it for the good reason, you're the fucking bad guys. Okay? It's real simple. So I got on stage and said, I looked in the camera at the end of the conversation and said, I want to speak to the adversaries now. And I said, you should be embarrassed. We got your capability, found it out, and talked about it before it was ever used. Even the shittiest ICS security capability at least got used by others. You didn't even get to use yours yet. And the beautiful thing about being in the national security community is years later, I had a national security friend reach out and say, hey, by the way, through various sources and methods, we find out 2 of those developers got fired after your talk. And that's fucking feeling good, okay? So here's my point on that, though. That pipe dream capability was the first time in history we saw a capability that could be used cross-industry, at scale, and reused, and can create kinetic effects so long as the target environment allows it. If something can't blow up naturally, you can't blow it up with cyber. But if there's a catalytic reaction, if there's abilities to do bad shit, you can now do it through cyber in a repeatable way. And we know, as a matter of fact, that there are state actors out there that looked at that and said, I want one too. And that's not abnormal. That's just the conversation of parity. Every state actor wants to have parity with their peers. If I'm in India, I want what Pakistan has. If I'm in China, I want what US has. If I'm in Russia, I want apparently everything, but including that. So everybody wants to have parity with their peers. So when they see pipe dream as a capability, everybody wants access to it. And here is the real kicker. Those type of capabilities are getting developed by a lot of state actors right now. Probably not like the Vatican, but most others, okay? Like most states are out there. Like Pope Panda is not doing it to you, but some others are. And when you look at that, the problem is not the states. The states are going to use it in conflict, and you're sitting here going, it won't bother me, it's just in conflict. 1, you should prepare for that anyways. And 2, every single state capability that's ever been worth anything has proliferated over time to non-state actors in every discussion, in every field of history, and definitely in cyber. So the pipe dream state capabilities of today are your ransomware toolkits of tomorrow. and you're not ready. You may feel ready. There's a bunch of cool names that Mike threw out of big companies, like they have top-tier security programs. I've been in those companies. I like those companies. But our definition of top-tier security program is a little different in the community. Top tier is like, cool, you're investing in it. We got to quickly get to, and I can actually do root cause analysis. You got to quickly get to, I know my scenarios. For those of you who are like, Rob, what do we do? SANS ICS 5 critical controls. Tim Conway and I sat down and thought about this a lot. SANS ICS 5 critical controls, go take a look at them, but define your scenarios. If I'm a power company, I shouldn't be freaking out about what's happening to the water company today. I should focus on what's happening to power companies. That's where I start. Set the scenarios of what's actually happened, not hypotheticals, not research, but what actually happened. And I can design out real security against that. Sure, I want you to be proactive, but most of you, no offense, most of your companies still can't detect Stuxnet. Everyone's talking to me about what's the next thing? And I'm like, can you detect lateral movement between controllers with changing logic over native protocols? Well, no, but we're looking at AI. I'm like, shit, man, start there, okay? I had testified at Congress a number of times. I had a senator yelling at me about quantum encryption. I was like, Senator, most water companies need a firewall, okay? Like, start with the basics. You can do this. A lot of you still think your adversaries are cool. I've met some of them. It's a super weird thing about being post-intelligence community and traveling around the world. Literally got to sit down and have a beer with one of your GRU operators that was in a campaign you can name targeting ICS. He was a fucking idiot. Why are you letting these people win? I was so stunned. I was like, you? Really? Like, I know me's not impressive, but you are less impressive. Like, this is silly. But what happens is if you don't do security, you don't invest in your people, you don't put up the firewall, you don't check it for the any rule that you left forever, of course you're going to lose. But if you actually invest in your people and do those fundamentals we talked about in the beginning, you'd be surprised. My best case study, then Mike, we can have our fireside now. My best case study, and it was a public one, so I'm allowed to use their name. I'm sure my team doesn't like it, but I saw them at a public conference, so it's okay. My best case study is Littleton, Colorado. Littleton, Colorado, small site, not a big security team, and I saw them go toe-to-toe with state actors on a small security team doing the basics and win. And I don't want to get into all the other details because the talk isn't online, though it was a public talk. But what I will say is I saw a small public power company do the basics and have one of your big actual APT kind of players that you can say try and fail for over a year to get to their objectives and got pushed off by that small security team. Defense is doable, okay? Do the basics. Think about what you need to do to actually design security against the attacks, not what you want. There's a lot of people that go, I have a good idea about security, or I want this, or this is good. And it's probably all great, but let's be real clear. They may be irrelevant to what you're trying to do. Okay, this is not an ethics discussion of this is a good security control or bad security control. It's a discussion of do these security controls address the risk we've identified? And if your risks are, I want to be cyber safe, that's not a thing. I want to be cyber secure, that's not a thing. Design out your security against what the adversaries are actually doing, and you'll find that you can do this, and you can do it at scale. If you go back to the beginning of the talk in that community aspect, you can do it with people you like. And I've been privileged to be in this wonderful community. I've been privileged to be able to do some cool things. And I've been privileged to realize that I'm just starting, and that this community is just getting started, and I'm privileged to serve in it with you.